what's the verb form. But there's no traditional verb. So it's that kind of always jerky prose style that makes Leonard so interesting. And so when you look at Get Shorty, Barry Levinson uses that a lot, constantly, sort of the feet, the moving. And I did that when I did an adaptation of Touch. I was trying to get myself into that Elmore Leonard kind of pace, style. Affliction, very different story, you know. A very cold place, people who live in the cold, people who are locked in the cold some way. And when I originally thought of the movie, I thought of moving the camera much more than I ended up moving it. And I came to realize that the camera doesn't want to move much in this. It just wants to sit there and wants to watch these people. It doesn't want to show off. It doesn't want to hopscotch around the room. Like this scene I showed earlier where the camera is always, you know, constant blocking and reshuffling of positions. So when you come to adapting, you have your own tricks, things that you're comfortable with, things you do well, and then you try to adapt them to what you think works for that material.
So it's not really a matter of fidelity, because too often today we hear, oh, I didn't like the adaptation, it wasn't faithful to the book. And often it's the criteria that people use to judge the adaptation. You know,
most filmmakers would like to be faithful to the book, although sometimes books are bought just so they can be gutted, you know, for their premise, in which case nobody even cares whether it's faithful. But you're trying to be faithful, but it's not easy, particularly, you know, if it's a quality book. I mean, how can you do a good adaptation of Human Stain? You can't. It's all about language, you know. How can you do that? You know, a lot of these adaptations are just futile enterprises. How can you do Vanity Fair? I mean, I was very pleasantly surprised at what a nice job Mira did. But still, Vanity Fair. I mean, please, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, yeah, I should.
I think we'll just take one more last question. Please, when you do go out, if you can remember to hand off those response forms, we'd really appreciate it. One more question, and then we'll call it a night.
This is a lot of pressure to be the last one, I think. Regarding, I think maybe I'm reformulating a little bit here what I was going to ask you, and wondering if maybe I'm just misunderstanding. When you're talking about emotion in the spiritual process of sort of accessing spirituality, I resonate with what you're saying with the distinction between spirituality and religiosity, and yet, is there a distinction between emotion in that conveyance getting in the way versus emotion that may be experienced in a spiritual experience? I mean, my personal faith is not terribly emotional,
Yeah.
But yet, looking back, there are moments that are punctuated with very heavy emotion. Is that, in your opinion, I don't want to make you answer for everybody, or make a general comment that may not be accurate to all, but does the question make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. And emotion is a very important part of one's spiritual life. But it's also can be a great obstacle. And it can pretend, you know, it can be the devil in disguise in a way, you know. You think, you know, you think it's the real thing, but it's not. It's just a play on your feelings. And you have to be careful about that, because our feelings are so easily manipulated. And you can, you know, you can show a puppy and, you know, and you will get a reaction. So you have to separate that off. But once you separate it off and pretend it doesn't exist, then it sneaks in the back door and shows up in its right form.
Okay, good. One really last question. Sometimes we don't feel like always accessing something really deep. When you're looking for a mindless explosion kind of movie, when you're slumming for emotion, as it were, what are some maybe more pop culture kind of movies do you like? I'm just curious.
Wait, I didn't get that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are there perhaps popcorn movies that you prefer just to switch the brain off? And
Oh,
enjoy, just out of
I'm like everybody else. I watch the same stuff. It's just that, I watch a number of, I go to the multiplex and I watch 4 or 5 films in an afternoon because you just go from theater to theater. But no, I mean, occasionally you do see an entertainment that is really, really well done, and you say, wow, that's great. I mean, who knows what will become of this Exorcist movie, but that's certainly meant as a pop culture movie with a serious side, but it's not meant as anything, terribly deep dish. I mean, that scene I showed is about as deep as it gets. But I like the same crap as everybody else,
Thank you.
Okay, actually, maybe I need to on the top.
Wait.
It's coming up.
Sure, if I get your autograph. Is that all right? Thank you very much. I really appreciate it.